Okay, so officially now, good morning, everybody. That was pretty enthusiastic, wasn't it? Is it because the holidays are coming? And you're not tired after 8 or 9 months of teaching? Not at all. You're looking forward to your break. Thank you very much for joining our conference, especially that it's so beautiful outside. Well, thank you for being with us. I didn't know that we're going to be filmed. So, well, if I had known, I would have shaven. Apologies. Apologies for the viewers. I remember about 2 years ago, before the then new reform was being introduced, the 6-year-olds reform going to primary school. When it was introduced then, I was making a few, what I thought was bold statements about the differences between 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds. And I was saying that there's no difference between 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds when it comes to cognitive capacity, when it comes to language aptitude, or even emotions or emotional development. And I think that at the time I was in the minority because there were lots and lots of voices saying that 6-year-olds should not go to primary, should not go to grade 1 because they're not mature enough for that. And now, after 2 years, I would still say that there's no difference. I'm really proud to say that I was right at the time. And I'm saying that not as a teacher trainer, not as an academic, but also as a father of the then 6-year-old child, 6-year-old girl starting primary school. And now after a year, what I noticed is that it is virtually impossible to tell which of the learners was starting school at the age of 6 and which of the learners were starting school at the age of 7. You wouldn't tell the difference, really. And when we talk about emotional development, when we talk about language capacity, when we talk about cognition, there are virtually no differences between them. There are 6-year-olds who are better, there are 6-year-olds who are weaker, there are 7-year-olds who are better, and there are 7-year-olds who are weaker. So perhaps it's not the question of age, is it? Perhaps there's other things that should be considered. Perhaps there's the environment, perhaps it's the parents and their awareness, perhaps it's the teachers who are teaching them all the subjects, English, religion, ethics, and what have you. Perhaps there's lots and lots of other variables that have to be taken into consideration while talking about 6- and 7-year-olds. So now, after 2 years, 6-year-olds are back to Zerówka. Whether it's good or not, you decide. But in this talk, in this session, I'm going to talk about those Zerówka kids, 6-year-olds, preschoolers this year, not really first graders. And in this session, in this talk, the way I planned it is that I thought I might share some experiences with you as a teacher trainer and, as I was saying, as a father, and also to show you some of the activities or activity types that you could possibly use with your learners next year if you happen to teach Zerówka children, or the Z children, as we will call them in this session. I've prepared some activities which I have stolen from other teachers or from my students, from my trainee teachers. The activities which I have found in different materials, and some of the activities which have been taken either literally or with slight modifications from New English Adventure Starter. This is the course that I'm going to be referring to, so that you get the flavor of what kind of ideas might and what kind of ideas might not work with pre-primary this time. And I've also planned some kind of interaction. No reaction to that. Do you mind? You don't mind? Okay, good. Because actually, the first task I've got for you is the interactive one. So this is something I would like you to do together. It's based on the poster, as you could see. It will rely on your memory and remembering capacity. And this is something I'd like you to do together. So can you turn around and say hello to as many people as you can? There's nothing wrong with a smile. And in a moment, I'm going to show you the poster. I'm going to give you like 35 to 40 seconds to look at it and to remember as much as you possibly can from it. And here is your poster. Thank you for closing your books. And in a moment, I'm going to show you some statements. And your task is very simple. Your task will be to decide whether they are true or false. Okay? I'm going to show you the statements one by one, but please don't shout out the answers. Don't give me the answers yet. Okay? When you see them all, your task will be to make conscious decisions within your small groups. Clear? Right, okay. So, true or false? The mermaid is holding a fork in her left hand. The big crab is playing with a yo-yo. The small crabs are on the train. The doll has got a pink dress. The teddy bear is in the box. Don't give me the answers yet. Sorry, not to make it clear at the beginning. The teddy bear is behind the ball. Okay? 6 statements, a minute or two, and then surprise me. Okay, the volume is going down, so I assume you get them all right. So let's try and put it together. The mermaid is holding a fork in her left hand. False. What's the correct answer then? The doll is the correct answer. Or the right hand? We'll see in a moment. Okay, well, it's definitely false, you were right. The crab is playing with a yo-yo. Yes? The small crabs are on the train. No, where are they? Somewhere. They are somewhere there in the picture. That's the correct answer. That's right, okay. I think they are in some sort of a cave, a hole or something like that. The doll has got a pink dress. What else? Definitely. The teddy bear is in the box. The teddy bear is behind the ball. Where is the teddy bear? In front of it, that's right. Okay, you're perfect. Your memory, your short-term memory works beautifully. But the problem is that this activity would be wrong for the Z children, wouldn't it? I mean, we might think of doing that with second graders, perhaps, with those ending the first grade as a consolidation activity. But when you think about it, do you remember the first true-false statement? It was the fork, left, right. Is it all right for 6-year-olds, left, right? Well, definitely not. I mean, I've got problems myself with what's left, what's right. I've got to think, I've got to process it. So it's not just women, yeah, it's men as well. But the children, absolutely, they have no idea. I mean, they do have an idea, but left and right are just the wrong concepts for them. And, you know, to personalize it, now my daughter and I, we ride bikes together. And she goes first, because she's younger, and I follow her on my big bike, and we just take rides in the park near our house. And when I tell her, turn left now, she goes like, which left? And then I have to be more specific. I have to make it kind of physical rather than abstract. And I say to her, well, you've got the bell on your handlebar. So, you know, the bell is on the right, on the left, there you go. The bell is on the left, the brake is on the right. Yeah, so for her, left would be the bell, right would be the brake. Left and right wouldn't work. But on a different level, there's no specific cognitive focus with this activity, is there? I mean, what was the instructions at the beginning? Look at the picture, look at the poster, try to remember as much as you can. So what exactly do you want me to do? You know, with children, we have to be absolutely specific. There was no language focus either. When you think of the vocabulary or the structures which were used in this activity, what did we have? Is holding, is in the box or behind, so prepositions. What else? And not everybody at the same time. So, you know, there was something I call a hodgepodge of structures because there was no language focus. And it could be demotivating as well because the demands were too high. And it was Lynn Cameron who, in one of her books, she used a term from business. The term is quite nicely called the Goldilocks principle. You know Goldilocks. You know, as primary teachers, you know Goldilocks. And the Goldilocks principle basically claims that if the demands are high, the support should be high as well. So it's about the balance between demands and support. And in this activity, I think it's just impossible to provide this high level of support for the children because there's too much of it for 6-year-olds. And, well, talking about motivation, you know that it's the driving force, isn't it? Yeah, once the child is motivated, then they will learn things. And they will not learn things for themselves, will they? They will learn things for you. Because why would they learn English? Why would they need English? Have you ever asked them? Why do you need English? They wouldn't know. Or they would come up with some kind of funny, strange ideas. So when we think about the main aims of the Z course, and Z will obviously stand for Zerówka. It's not a course book, so you don't have to look for it and browse it in the internet. It just doesn't exist. I just refer to the level of the children. Well, when you think about what do you want them to practice, what do you want them to learn, probably the first thing that springs to mind would be to develop their graphomotor skills. You know, tracing, drawing, perhaps a little bit of writing, which is more like drawing letters, you know, just to be kind of dexterous with hands, especially with one hand, usually. Then another one, as important, is developing this liking for English. You know, if they like it, they learn it. They're enthusiastic about it. If they don't like it, they will not learn it. So again, going back to the notion of motivation. And I would like to ask you a personal question. Do you give grades to your children? Well, if you don't, then I'm with you. I'm seriously with you on that one. If you do, well, what can I say? I wouldn't if I were the teacher, because, again, from my experience as a father and as a teacher trainer in that order, I've noticed that what grades do is that they are stigmatizing the children. If a child gets a good grade, then what they are doing is not something that they're doing for themselves, they're doing that for the grade. Like, you know, my daughter, when she started school, I'll be referring to my daughter quite often in this talk, apologize for that. When my daughter started learning at school, she would get grades from the teacher. And after about a month, there was something that my wife and I, that we call the grade paranoia. Because whatever she did, like, you know, we've got this nice IKEA board that she uses. So she would draw something on it, and then the first immediate question was, what grade would I get for that? She would do something completely not related with school, and the question was, what grade would I get for that? So she was kind of obsessed with being assessed, obsessed with being graded. Well, obviously, because she's my daughter, she's the best in class. She's absolutely the best in class. So she has no problems. I mean, she gets good grades. So we're lucky in that respect. But what happens if a child gets not so good grades? They know that no matter how hard they try, they'll never get there. So they get demotivated right from the start. Right in grade 1, or even in grade 0. And the bad news for them, and the bad news for you, is that there's 12 years to go. 12 more years for them. 12 more years when they are not going to like what they are doing. And that is sad, isn't it? And also, they know that they are not as good as the others. And they don't understand why, because they are trying, and trying. And they will get a 4 or a 5, but never a 6. So developing a liking for English, you know, the motivation being the driving force, is absolutely crucial. Then we've got something that that is called in literature, this phonological feel. That is getting the sound of language. And I'm not talking about individual sounds. I'm talking about the melody. I'm talking about the rhythm. I'm talking about how English sounds. And the good thing about developing that at the early level of education is that, first of all, children are very flexible, as we all know. They are perfect parrots. And second of all, they have no inhibitions. So if you tell them to practice TH, doing th, they'd love it, because it looks stupid. And it sounds stupid as well. Try to teach the sound to a group of 40-year-old students. Adults, they would never do it, even if they can, because it looks ridiculous. Because I'm a serious businessman, I will never go th, because I'm not going to do that, period. Yeah? So this is something which will pay off in the future. Then we've got creativity. Creativity, which is, as Ken Robinson once said, which is as important as literacy. But very often, we don't treat creativity as seriously as literacy, which is sad. Then what is connected with creativity is critical thinking. And obviously, when we talk about 6-year-olds, or 7-year-olds, or 8-year-olds, we would not expect them to kind of devour philosophical propositions from Wittgenstein, but instead solving simple problems which are typical of 6-year-old children. And talking about these two, I think the good news, which actually comes from our Ministry of Education, you know, this government is not my cup of tea at all, but I think one thing that they did, which I liked, was that they banned sprawdzian szóstoklasisty. And I think, yes, I want more. I want more exams abolished. Because you know what was happening? I mean, the teachers were thinking in terms of exam preparation rather than in terms of teaching English as a foreign language. And that's understandable. Because if a child does badly, or if the whole group does badly, it's not their fault, it's your fault, is it? That's the typical interpretation. You were not good enough as a teacher. So now, with this being abolished, exam paranoia is probably coming to an end, and both creativity and critical thinking could be reintroduced in the syllabus, could be reintroduced in teaching. And finally, lastly, but as importantly, we've got this lexicogrammatical stock, or language. Yeah, we teach them English, and that's obvious because it's an English course that we're talking about. But if you look at these 6 bullet points, 5 of them would be general, and only 1 would be related with English, with the subject. So overall general development going together with language development. And when we talk about the main features of the Z English course, it will be what? Teacher support in the first place. So children have to feel you by their side, knowing that you will help, knowing that you will re-explain things, knowing that you will help them in drawing, in whatever they're doing. It's going to be positive reinforcement to get them going. So, and again, something that we should remember, or that we simply remember, is that anything they do is great, isn't it? Anything they do, each of them does, is great. Period. Variety. Variety understood as using those short activities which, when put together, they resemble one big task. They are short because of the children's concentration span or ability to deal with a particular task for a particular period of time. But we know that a collection of short activities is actually one big task or one big activity. Then we're talking about doing things, but also making things. So creativity comes into play here. And something which I call predictable unpredictability. So something that refers to the structure of the lesson and the tasks that we give children, something which is or has to be predictable for them, but with different ways of going about them. So a little bit of surprise, a little bit of unpredictability is always a nice thing. And this, in fact, is the agenda for the remaining part of this presentation, for the remaining part of this talk. And then when we think about the main task types of the Z course, what have you got? Pointing, listening, saying, matching, drawing, circling, coloring, sticking, cutting, gluing, repeating, singing, chanting, dancing, jumping, playing, acting, and probably more and more and more and more. So this is what variety actually means to me. And I would like to make one important claim, which I consider an important claim, about starting early. It's about starting at the age of 6 or starting even earlier than at the age of 6. About a month ago, I went to a conference, an academic conference in Styrk, which is not far from Krakow, is it? Just around the corner, really. A beautiful place, a great conference, organized yearly, a conference for academics. And this year's theme was age factor. So obviously, 70% of the talks, 70% of the papers were about children. And the most recurring question was whether we should start early or not. And I was kind of surprised, or maybe not, that the majority of the papers